Now it's time to be dangerous. Now it's time to get risky. Now it's time to truly find out what you're made of and what you could achieve. Now it's time to truly find out how many lives you can impact. Now it's time to find out what you were destined to become.
What up? Welcome back, everybody, to Season 2, Episode 25. I know we messed up a little bit there last time. We got our numbers messed up, but this is 25. We are Raw Minds. I'm your host, Eric.
And I'm Anthony.
And we're here to kick some ass, talk some bullshit, have a good time, and meet new people. So, here it is. We got some big stuff coming up, man. What were you saying? 6 episodes we're recording over the next week?
6 episodes. We have this one.
Yeah.
We have a collab on Wednesday with Leland.
Yes.
Which is...
he runs actually a group called No Deadbeat Dad Society. And he started, I think, 2012, I believe.
I think that's what he said, yeah.
Yeah. And he's got a podcast called We Are Better Men. And yeah, I can't even speak. I'm actually a little bit excited about it. He's retiring that podcast, and he wants us to come on and, be a part of the ending of his podcast and see what happens there. Maybe, his viewers will like what we got to offer, and they can come listen to us, and we can pick up and take on that torch for them, man. So we'd be honored to take that.
So we got this one. We're filming an episode for Leland, and then we're filming our own with Leland, and then Sunday we are doing Dad Talk.
Great guys, man.
With I remember Zach and Scott. That's what I thought it was. Man, we talked to so many people in the week because we have the other guy coming on soon, whose name was Scott, that we interviewed last week.
Yeah,
so it's like trying to keep track of all the names, but yeah, Scott and Zach, they just started. They're out of New York. It's just 2 dudes. Yeah, they're in here. Oh yeah, shit.
Yeah,
sorry, I just coughed right in the fucking microphone.
It's all good, buddy.
2 dudes just shoot the shit in their garage, man. Pretty cool dudes. So we're excited to do a double with them as well. We're gonna do one for us and one for them.
Yeah, man.
And then Monday we have one.
It is one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 6 episodes in the next week.
Yeah. So check them out, man. Dad Talks. They will be on all the platforms. I know definitely Podbeam, Spotify, YouTube. Hit them up on TikTok. It's dads.talks. Show them some love, man. I love what they're doing. If I love it, you guys might love it. So check them out, man, and show them some love.
Yeah, and if you're loving what we're doing or what they're doing, do us all a solid and follow. Follow, subscribe, like, whatever you got to do. Leave a comment. It just helps us out in the long run. We love what we do. We just want to know how much you guys love it. We've done a bunch of statistic look on our YouTube. Like 90% of the people who listen aren't following. It's just one click of a button. It would help us out. And also, if you guys want to be a guest on our show, don't hesitate to reach out to us at rawmindspodcast@gmail.com or check out our website at rawminds.ca. There's a way you can connect with us there as well. And just give us a little bit of your backstory and what you want to talk about. And we'll have you on. We don't shy away from anyone. We have a couple simple rules, but as far as it goes, man, it's raw, it's unfiltered, it's unedited. We just have a fucking conversation, 3 dudes. We talk about some dark stuff and we talk about some empowering stuff. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're about, man.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, man.
And another exciting news, we got fucking business cards, man. With
I know.
QR codes on there, man. All our info on the back. They messed up though. The white was supposed to be black and the black's supposed to be white there. But
that's okay.
They're getting us new ones. They're sending new ones, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, man.
And I just wish we could spill the beans for some of the other shit that we going on in the background, but I'm just so excited, man.
Excited. We're working on a giveaway, and I know we said it quite a bit, like leading up to this point. It's in the works right now. Like we're just waiting for confirmation of the stuff that we're giving away to be ready. And we have some big announcements with a guest coming up in the middle of March. We'll be dropping the giveaway. Be some simple rules you got to follow. You got to be following us, following them, share, all that fun shit.
Ooh, we got something good.
Yeah, it's going to be sick. So, and super excited to work with that company as well too, right? Like, we got a lot of shit going on, man.
We do, man. fuck.
It's
There's
good
other
though.
things too, but like we gotta take baby steps, man. Because I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
get too excited. I got too many adventures going on in the background here, and it's overwhelming, definitely.
yeah, man. Yeah, man.
So we got a fucking wicked we got a wicked fucking guest, man. And how I met him was just wild, right? It's just you can't. It's just wild, man. So little,
I'm
huh?
excited because I was sick for the interview. So we typically do a two-step, well, just a two-step process. We have a pre-interview with the guests and get a little bit of back information and kind of figure out what the topic's going to be of the conversation. But I was actually sick the day that you interviewed this gentleman. So I'm
True.
coming in fucking literally uninformed aside from what you told me. And
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a good conversation. I'm excited. There's a couple things I know you wanted him and I to touch on. So
Yeah,
we'll
man.
get into that for sure.
Yeah.
And just excited to hear his story because you've told me some pretty wild shit. So
Let's
bring
fucking
him
bring
in
him
here.
on, man. Let's do
Fucking bring him
this.
in here.
All right. I just want to say, Mark, welcome to
Mark.
the show, brother.
Thanks for
Welcome.
having me.
Yeah,
Awesome to
buddy.
be here. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude. Like, and how we met too, man. That was, I mean, it doesn't get more cooler than that.
No,
Definitely.
I mean, for me, it's one of those, well, I guess we should say how we met, right? It was a Dead Mouse, James
Yeah.
Hype, and
Oh, James Hype was there too?
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Oh, you
So
fucking
James
guys.
Hype was on, and I'd never seen James Hype live, and I was sort of pushing through the crowd, and I ended up blocking Erick's girlfriend's view, and she was not impressed. But I was just all like, James Hype, and my friend was like, come on, like, you go easy on him, like, see how much he loves this DJ and whatever, right? But then we got to talking, and he said, Eric said, do you watch podcasts? I said yes, although I don't, just to see where it was going. He put the podcast in my phone, and I looked it up, and it's awesome, and right up my alley. And I said, hey, maybe I should come on and talk.
Hell yeah,
Chat with you
man.
guys.
We
Yeah,
love
so-
that.
Yeah, dude.
So
We appreciate the love too.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I say you want to just hop into it, kind of give you a backstory, and let's just I say we just rip the fucking
Yeah.
Band-Aid right
Let's
off and
go
we'll
for
get
it.
right in there, man.
So I'm gonna do a really broad stroke first, and then I'll jump backwards. Okay.
Totally cool,
Sure,
man.
man. Well, I live in BC right now. I live in northern BC, but I was a bit of a misfit as a youth. I was a 90s raver in Vancouver. I developed a crystal meth problem and went a little bit nuts and eventually found my way to school. So now I teach college up north here, criminology and sociology. But where I am, I had a really bad, 3-year span, let's say. Except it wasn't really that bad. And I developed a theory at the end of it that bad things don't happen to me. They just don't. In 2017, I was married for 10 years, and my partner said he was going to go away and help his dad. And I thought that was kind of weird, and I called him. I said, hey, are you coming back? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm coming back. He didn't come back. So I rebounded into heroin addict. Essentially, a year after we were dating, he stabbed me in the head 3 times on the way to work. We talk about that a little more detail. And then just as I was recovering from that, I got diagnosed with cancer. But it was all right. I feel like everything prepared me for the next step of bad, which was just another thing, essentially, that happened once I changed my mindset, right? So, but the big thing, the catalyst, I would say, is it was March 1st, 2018, on the way to work, and when I talk, this is a story from my perspective, right? So obviously his story might differ, right? But he was driving fairly slow, and I was just a bunch of emotional reactions. I was in an abusive relationship, although I didn't know that, right? It was really hard for me to understand how a guy could be in an abusive
Mm-hmm.
relationship. He was driving pretty slowly, and I was like, "Hey, pick up the pace. Like, I'm going to be late for work, right?" And he said, "Well, you could drive," and that was odd because he always drove everywhere. He drove my car everywhere. So we switched seats, and as we were going around the vehicle, we locked eyes, and it was just a feeling of bad. Hopped in the car, and within a minute, he said to me, "I could drive if you want," and I just lost it. I blew up. It was rage like I have never unleashed before, and I was like, "You fucking prick," and like turning my head to the side as I was essentially yelling at him. And all of a sudden, I felt this crash in my head, and he stabbed me 3 times. As he was saying that,
It's insane, man.
he said, "That's right, Mark. I want to watch you bleed out and fucking die." And I don't know how, but I was pissed because now I figured out that he had stabbed me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I somehow pulled over to the side of the road, and my first instinct was to beat the fuck out of him. And as I was grabbing to him, he took the knife and slashed my hands open, right? When I was trying to grab for him. And then I had this thought. I was like, okay, so you could stay and die, or you could live to life another day, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I got out of the car, and I started like flailing up the highway here. And he opened the door, his passenger door, slammed it shut, screamed fuck, and then ran around to the driver's seat and tried to run me over. Missed me by probably about half an inch and ended up in a snowbank.
That's crazy.
Uh, totally freaky.
Yeah.
Like standing there. I mean, when I talk about this, I get really excited. Okay.
No,
Like
yeah.
it's like there's blood gushing out of my head all over the whatever headboard of the car when I was there, right? But I can feel it like squirting out of my head. So
Gnarly,
this is
dude.
where he
Oh.
stabbed
Yeah.
me, right? Once right here. And a trucker drove by, and I mean, he didn't know what was going on, but he waved, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" Right?
Mm-hmm.
And my ex sort of waved back like this eerie Queen's wave, like it was like bad. Darted up the highway, and I was like, "Okay." So I crossed lanes, and I was like, "The next car is stopping, right?" And so I'm running up the middle of the highway. This truck towing, I don't know, some construction caterpillar thing or something, right? They stopped, and I got them to call 911. And I mean, it's odd because I remember so much from that day, mainly because I've written it all down. Everything from waking up in the morning to like the stabbing, the ambulance drive, thoughts that I thought at the time that I didn't say, but I remember a lot. So I don't know. That's enough to go on, I think, at first here.
So,
Um, yep,
if you don't mind me asking, Mark, like,
yep.
was this a premeditated situation, or do you feel like it was just toxic and it was just kind of the fucking cards fell where they fell?
So there's a couple of reasons why it's both. 1,000,000% was toxic. I was like lost in this relationship, right?
So, just to clarify, this was
Yep.
after your marriage, and this was the rebound
Yes.
after the marriage. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was still technically married at that
Yeah.
time. But so the odd thing about that morning, right? So in the morning, he's like, "Hey, Mark, let's fuck or whatever," right? And I was like,
Yep.
"Oh, okay. I like to fuck," right? And it became clear to me that he just wanted to get high. And I was like, dude, if you just wanted to get high, just say that, right? So I got a little pissy and went back to bed. It was odd because the night before this morning, he was a pretty lazy dude, right?
Yeah.
And he was like cleaning up like immaculate style. And I was laying on the bed and I was like, I am just so mentally exhausted right now. Refuse to feel guilt for just letting you clean up by yourself, right?
Yep.
When we left for work that morning, like that, the house was impeccable. Okay. He left. He's like, oh, I forgot my guitar, right? Ran back in and then ran out a couple minutes later.
Well, that was before you guys hit the road and before the whole incident happened, right?
Yes, it's before the incident happened, right? So, I mean, fast forward just on this tip really quick. When I got out of the hospital and finally got back there, the house had been tossed. And I don't know, right? But I believe he went in and tossed the house to make it look like there was a struggle. Now, the other thing that I found really disconcerting, but for some reason I still had feelings for him. He asked me, because I was communicating with him while he was in jail under like different names, right? Like different addresses, because there was we weren't allowed to talk to each other. So I go to the car and it's a bloodbath. Like there's blood everywhere. And as I'm going through the car, I found this card and it was his handwriting and it said, for the last year I've been lied to, abused. And I was like, what? Right? So I carried that card around me for quite some time, but it's my belief that, you know, he wasn't afraid that I was going to die. He was afraid that I was going to live.
Gonna live, yeah, so you could tell someone.
And so this for me is a script to call 911, say, oh, hey, you know, I've been abused and this is, you know, what happened or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, a number of things happened in here. Like I remember the police at the domestic violence unit standing in my bedroom asking if I had ever abused him. I was sitting in a victim services meeting one day, and one of the cops said to me, like they're crafty when they talk, right?
Oh yeah, they have to be.
And one of the cops said, "Oh well, you know, we checked on him, and you know, you asked how his arm was," and I was like, what do you mean? I was confused, so I didn't really say anything. But I think that he cut himself and said that I cut him. Like, so a lot of this I don't know, but there's so many things
narrowing it to
that
that.
are out of place, right? And one of the most baffling things for me, and I mean, I'm a mama's boy, right? So mommy came up and, you know, she didn't really ever like him, right? But she, for some reason, after he stabbed me, even though I knew personally, I had a conversation with one of my friends that morning that I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I think it's over, right? But after he stabbed me, I liked him more. And
Whoa, that's
I didn't know why. And it was an ego game, right? Because how could I be with someone who ended up doing this, right? And it was a way, I think, for me to protect myself from myself, right?
Do you
the
think
turning point? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I was just like, I remember like a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, this probably doesn't happen too often, but when someone like a kidnapper kidnaps someone,
Yeah.
you know, and they have them for, say, in the basement for how long, you know, that person eventually starts having feelings for that person.
Yeah.
Would you like? I forget the medical term for it, but
Munchausen. I think it's Munchausen.
Munchausen. Yeah. So, do you believe it was like that? Like that,
It
in a sense?
maybe kind of.
Yeah.
Like it was me scrambling. Like I really can't explain what happened because I was filled with shame, but I was compelled to like seek him out and help him and, you know, put him in contact with his mom the day after I got released from the hospital. And like it was a very odd feeling for me, and my mom didn't like it because I was like, forgive him. Like it was bad.
Yeah, your mental
I,
state definitely wasn't on where it should have been. It was,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I mean, the turning point for me was I was writing him letters, excuse me, writing him letters, right? And every time I read the words on the page, it was violence. Like I just felt violence, right? And he wrote me this one letter with a picture of him on the front. And he's in the letter, it said, haha, got a haircut, kind of looked like Charles Manson. And at first, like I read that and I was pissed off. And then I was like, no, I'm going to write a nice supportive letter. And I don't know why I thought that. But I opened up my computer and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Run, right? And
Yeah.
that's when it sunk in that I basically traded me and my self-esteem for him, right? So it was rough feeling the way I did, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you done any like investigating into like with a therapist or anything in regards to where those feelings might have come from? Because that's that like, and this isn't, don't take this as me judging you,
Oh,
Mark, but like to go through a scenario like that and that be your emotional outcome to that scenario, that's a pretty extreme one.
it's it's what's interesting to me is that I always thought I was a fairly independent person, but I mean, we live in the age of the internet and everyone's boyfriend's a narcissist, but
Yeah, yeah.
I really do believe that he had narcissistic personality disorder and
Hmm.
he whittled me down to a point where I didn't even recognize myself. And like he would do things like, oh, change your profile picture. You're not even that person anymore. Like he would always let me know that he was in control, but I didn't believe him. You know,
And also in like direct ways, I guess you could say
yes.
like that. Yeah. It's
Well,
like a mind fuck almost. You
oh,
know what I mean?
huge,
Definitely.
huge mind fucks all over the place. So I should
Yeah.
also say he, uh, I was the first dude that he was ever with, right? And so, you know, he would use sex like carrot on the stick, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
He'd say, "Oh, let's do this," and I'd be like, "Okay, let's do this," and then he'd pull back, and I'd just go do something else. But after a while of that, I'd get pissed off, I'd blow up, and so it was like almost like he was seeking the emotional reaction. Like he
Yeah.
wanted me to get angry, then he had a reason for, to be angry at
Yeah.
me
It's
because I
almost
was
like a
angry at
high
him.
he's chasing, right? It's almost
Yeah.
like some
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of like a
So,
dopamine.
That's how they maintain
Yeah.
control.
well,
Yeah.
and that's like one of the weird, he would tell me, except I wouldn't believe him, right? Like, it, I mean, it's really hard to explain unless you've gone through that, right?
Yeah.
But rather than, I mean, there was another point in, like, I don't mean any offense to anyone who's gone through any narcissistic abuse, right? But it made me want to learn more about narcissists, right? But as I'm watching, because the internet is filled with videos and stories, and
Hmm.
they're very tragic, right? But I was watching these for probably maybe 3, 4 weeks. And then I thought, and again, this is what I don't mean offense. I was like, is this what my life has been reduced to now? Is my life now just me, saying beware of narcissists and this is how they do it, right? I'm thinking this as I'm saying it. I wanted to tell a different story, right? That was not focused on abuse because I could write a horror story, right? So,
Hmm.
like a couple months prior to him stabbing me, he assaulted me with an axe. Uh,
Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
man.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so, and the weird thing there is like, well, it was the butt end of the axe, but I don't think that
Axe
matters.
is an
Like,
axe, brother.
like, so it's like there
Can I,
was
no
so
pun intended, but can I take a quick stab at this?
no.
That was a terrible pun. That was
I
terrible.
should have, I should have warned you. I laugh like Pee Wee Herder,
You're good,
Pee
man.
Wee Herman. That's okay,
No,
Pee
man.
you're
Wee
good.
Herman or Big Bird. But yeah, no. But you know what's funny, Anthony, is things like that. I mean, now I'm through it, but
Yeah.
often I will I will have, oh, let me take a stab at this, right? Like I
Yeah.
call it my stab-iversary, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So, and it's affectionate, but I'm in a place where I can, now say that, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it took a while because after I got over these like emotions that would just crash and
Yeah.
crash, and I mean, suicidal ideation, right? Which I was never really suicidal, right? I'd sit there and, talk to well, I should say I had an army of therapists too, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I'd talk to my therapist. I'd be like, so, like, when are thoughts about suicide wrong? Because I was calling suicide hotlines, right? Like, I
Mhm.
want to kill myself. What do I do? And I never pictured myself to be a suicide hotline type of guy, right? And finally, my therapist is like, okay, well, thoughts of suicide, okay, they're maybe not productive, but they're thoughts and you're talking about them. It's
Mhm.
when you stop talking about them that
Mm,
it becomes problematic, right?
yeah.
So, I mean, now, still to this day, I see a therapist, which was a big jump for me because I used to think that people who went to therapy were weak, but it turns out that it's just really chilled out.
Yeah,
Even
man.
Yeah.
I'm the best person to have therapy with because, like, we'll talk about philosophy or like whatever, unless something's under my skin that
Mhm.
particular week, right? But I don't know where you go.
So
Yeah,
can I just kind of give like my, because I can actually relate to the behaviors that you're talking about a lot, because I was in a relationship with someone with borderline personality disorder,
yeah,
and people with borderline personality show a lot of toxic narcissistic traits. And coming out of it, it was almost like I didn't want to paint that person in a very bad picture because I didn't want to paint myself as the victim. Or like I tried to justify or rationalize their behavior and like kind of put more of the blame on myself. And I worked through it with my therapist a lot. I was like, well, I said this and I did this. And my therapist is like, no, like you are a victim. Like this, you're a victim of borderline personality disorder. But it's really tricky when you're an empathetic person because you feel for these people, right? And I still am in love with this woman and I empathize with her because I know that she suffers from it. It's not like she's thriving in life because she has borderline personality
right.
disorder. She's suffering and our relationship suffered. And also I suffered, but I became a toxic person in that relationship as well as a result of it. Right. But before I addressed it all, like I would almost filter certain parts of the story depending on who I was telling it to so that I didn't make her look that bad because then
Yes,
I would feel bad for making her look bad. And my therapist is like, you need to tell the story exactly as the story happened.
and I
Mhm.
I did that too, right?
Yeah.
Like this is another big one, right? So compulsive lying, right? So many times because, like you said, I think I'm empathetic, right? And he said he was in the military, right? It came out during this whole process. He was never in the military. There were so many times where he would make me feel guilty for not caring about his
Mhm.
feelings, but it was a lie, right? I
Sounds like
mean,
control almost, right? It's a
oh,
sense
It's
of
all control.
control.
well,
Yeah.
and like, it's a very, I mean, gaslighting is lying with extra steps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I wouldn't know the truth, right, about that, but it made me question a whole bunch of his other behaviors around that, right? Because I'm the type of, or was the type of person, I see a stray dog and I want to take it in. And like, and I never recognized these things about myself, but I had some deep introspection going on to ask myself, who I was and why I do things. I'm a little bit older, right? But am a little bit vain. And when this happened, I would stare in the mirror, right? And my mom would say to me, "You're so vain. Stop looking at yourself." But that's not why I was doing it in that
Mhm.
instance, right?
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
was looking at myself because I did not who that person fucking was. I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, who the fuck are you? Like, I it just shook my world, right? Yeah, didn't know up from down. So
Yeah, I remember coming out of the relationship with my ex, and I remember when I reconnected with my therapist, the very first therapy session I had with her, man, I'm not shitting you. I bawled my fucking eyes out for 50 minutes straight. That woman said 3 words the whole time. And I said the exact same thing. It's like, I don't know who the fuck Anthony is anymore because these people, and I will say just on for their sake and like to not just like bash them, like if they go untreated, it's sometimes they're not even aware they're doing it, but there was so much like deep rooted control in certain ways by like if I wasn't doing something to satisfy her to the extent she wanted it to be satisfied at, she was very sure to make sure that I was aware that I wasn't enough, and gaslighting to the point where telling me that like I needed to go to therapy because if I wasn't in therapy, she didn't want to be with me. Like I was
right,
crazy if I wasn't in therapy. You know what I mean? And like it was just her way to maintain control, like emotional control of the situation. And I did the same thing, man. I gave everything to this woman. And Eric and I have talked about it before. So like where I live, she used to live an hour away from me. And she would ask me to come over on say like let's say a Monday night. And she would be on call. So I would get home from work at 6 o'clock. I would have to eat, shower, pack a bag. So let's call it 7:30, 8 o'clock before I'm even out of the door. Now I have
yeah,
to drive an hour. So I get there at 9. There's probably a good chance she's gonna get called to work. So I'm gonna spend half an hour, maybe an hour with her. But by 10 o'clock, I'm going to bed anyways because I'll have to be up at 5 to fucking drive an hour home.
Yeah.
So she would ask me to do this. And then at the end, it was like, let's think logically here. That doesn't make sense. And then she would turn it into, well, like if I could do it, I would do it because I love you. I'm like, this has nothing to do with loving you or not. Like, let's
yeah,
just use our normal people heads here,
yeah,
And it was just like making me feel like I wasn't enough or what I was doing was lacking.
yeah,
And that's what I did. I just continued to throw myself, but I would continue to be told like it wasn't enough. So I would do more and more to the point where when I had separated myself from that relationship, it was just like, I don't even know what I enjoy anymore. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I had to relearn who I was and how to love myself and learn what I loved in my life that made me feel like I loved myself. It was a lot of work, man.
Well, it was like a complete erasure. By the way, my first therapy session, I cried for 50 minutes. But you know what's really, I'm going to say, neat about being a victim, right? Is that everything surfaced. Like everything from my childhood, sexual abuse, like everything just wham, like came out, right? And it looked really shitty, like really, really, really bad. But there's like a two side to this. So everything felt really bad, but I had this like compulsion to go to church, right? I came to find that although I don't believe in God, I blamed God for a lot of things that had happened in my life, right? I was like lost and I need a spiritual something. And I found this church where a whole bunch of people attend, right? Whether they're Buddhist or Christian or Hindu or whatever, right? So I email them and I have this like, okay, I like to talk. I was like, okay, you're not going to talk, you're going to listen, change the role, go in, you don't have to be a victim like in this setting. Shit happened that morning. I went to the wrong church. I ended up there a little bit late. I'm rushing in, and my reasoning for not telling my story, right? Like doing the overshare, was that there would be kids present. They dismissed the kids off to their little room and I let them have it. And I don't even know where the words came from, but it started off with uh, my name's Marc Sinclair, stabby, whatever, right? I've always thought Christians are weak. And you could feel the energy in that room just collapse. Like it just died. And as soon as I sat down, it was so sweet. The woman sitting next to me, like I'm getting the chills right now, she put her arm on my arm and she said, I hope you stick around. I think you'll really like it here. And I was like, okay, that didn't really go, how I
Go the
thought.
way.
Yeah.
So I told myself I wasn't going to wimp out and run away. And so I'm hanging out for coffee and cookies or whatever, standing at the back of the room. And this old dude with a cane, right? He's in his 70s. He walks up to me and he says, "So that's quite the little speech you gave there." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I know that wasn't supposed to happen." And we just started talking and we ended up becoming really good friends. He asked me what book I was reading, and I said, "Oh, Nonviolent Communication." And he said, "Yeah, hogwash. You don't need that. What you need is appreciative inquiry." And so I would come to learn, I was interested right away, right? Because I like ideas. Appreciative inquiry is organizational psychology that is used in businesses to boost productivity, right?
Mhm.
But if you modify it into a micro level conversation, it helps you improve your listening skills, right? And identify what went well, right? So identifying what went well would eventually, for me, show me that it actually wasn't all that bad. Like, yeah, it sucked, right? But I became really appreciative and grateful for a lot of things.
Mhm.
Yep.
After I was stabbed, I was grumpy, center of the universe, feel my fury type of guy. Didn't really realize that I was alive. And then so here
Attaboy.
it says I
Thank you.
am, and here is alive, just as reminders, right, for me in the places that they are, just in case I think certain thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I should also say that I was always a skull and crossbones type of guy until the stabbing, and now I'm a heart and halo type of guy.
Attaboy. Beautiful.
Hell yeah, man.
Beautiful.
But yeah, appreciative inquiry, gratitude. And it's weird how it works. Your world changes, right?
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
You could say that like the whole thing was like and we're saying this a lot now lately is from pain to power, right? And it's
yeah,
just the gratitude of just the small things in life too, that we take advantage for, right? So that going through like something like that, getting stabbed in the head 3 times, that's fucking insane,
Yeah.
just
yeah,
alone that,
yeah,
and then not knowing if you're gonna die or not because you're sitting there bleeding out. I remember you were telling when we were having a conversation, you're
yeah,
just squirting everywhere.
yeah.
It's a scary moment, man. You don't know if and
Well,
now look at you now. Like we'll get into a little bit more
yeah,
of the stuff, right? But I mean, it's the gratitude of like being here, taking like the small steps and forgiving. Like we haven't got into that part yet, but I mean,
yeah,
even the forgiving stuff too is just
yeah,
so powerful, man.
It's
yeah,
Very
changing your
powerful.
perspective.
Yeah.
Your perspective matters like so much, man.
Yeah.
Like there's always gratitude and there's always something positive, like even in the like getting stabbed in the head, like you had said, like you didn't realize you were alive. You know what I mean? Like
right.
now you realize
Mhm.
you're alive. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
as
Well,
fucking
and
terrible of an experience as that was, like something came of it, something positive, and it led you to right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, and that's what I love about your podcast is because I listen to them and I'm like, that's me.
Mhm.
Like this is the same story, right?
yep,
So like same but different, right? I
Yeah,
yep,
don't
yeah.
want to trivialize anything,
No,
but
no, yeah,
it's the
yeah,
classical hero story, right?
yeah,
There's this person, they're in the shit, they go through shit, they
yeah,
come out, and they like that's a great story.
yeah,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
And I mean, there's so many different ways to tell it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
But the end game is always like there's the starting, the middle, and then the end game. And everybody's story is different, but at the same time it's still the same story.
yes,
And at the
yeah,
end is the same, just to be a better person, live your life and just fucking live, and be a good fucking person at the end of the day is
yeah,
the end good.
oh yeah, absolutely. And I used to like have thoughts that I was better than people, right? This was the big equalizer for me. I
Yeah.
was like, nope,
Humbling.
I'm not better than anyone. I want to be a better person than the guy I was yesterday, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
Like, and I mean, I mean, it took a toll on me in so many ways, but it's the best worst thing, right?
Yeah.
And I love paradoxical statements like that. It's just like, well, if it's the best worst thing, was it really all that bad? Like, I mean, grace. That's where it's, and I never said words like grace or gratitude or like I don't know. I feel different. A lot of people say I'm not really all that different,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel different at least
Yeah.
in the
And
mind.
that's all that fucking matters, right?
Yeah.
You're the one that's driving your body, not these other people.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
so it's all about you. Do you want to get into like the whole forgiveness phase and like how you transitioned to all that?
Sure. When I was really unsure of whether a court case was going to happen because he was charged with attempted murder, right?
Mm-hmm.
But lawyers play little games with each other, right? And I remember the Crown Counsel brought me in and said, okay, review your statement. Okay, you're going to have to write a victim impact statement. And so I did. Now, in criminology, I was always a little bit critical of victim impact statements. And I also like to talk a lot, and there's no page limit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote a shitty 40-page
Holy shit.
shitty story about how life sucks according to the parameters that they give you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not allowed to say their name. You're not allowed to say, hey, go to hell and I want to kill you and
Yeah.
all these types of things, right? So it's just the negative impacts, right? I felt really shitty. And I was like, oh, life does suck, right? After I wrote out this story, I'm like, oh, lots of shit did happen. Like, what do I have to live for? And this is after I'm up and down, but I'm trying
Yeah.
to be grateful and all this, right? And I was driving and I was like, I just asked myself, I was like, so why do you feel so shitty? And it's like, well, what's the story that you're telling yourself? And I thought, okay, well, it's a shitty story. So tell a different story. So instead of focusing on all of the shit that happened to me
Hold
and
on.
going
Did you,
bankrupt,
sorry to cut you, did you send that 40-page off to them or did you just say, no, fuck this, I'm going to rewrite it?
no, I sent it to them
Okay.
and
Okay.
I actually reached out to them and I said, I thought there was going to be a trial. At this point, they said, no, he's taking a plea deal for aggravated assault.
So it dropped down.
Yeah, and so I contacted the Crown and I asked to rescind it, and they said no. They said it stays, but I will also add your other one.
Okay.
And it was all about gratitude and forgiveness, and basically I was saying, hey, like no hard feelings, right? Like, and I think that was really powerful in a lot of ways, right? Around the same time, too, I showed you this before, Eric, but like I was doing a lot of searching and reading, and I found this one Buddhist article, and it said, if you ever have an enemy, you should uh, hang a picture of them in your house, right? Can I grab it?
Oh, yeah, man. Please
Yeah.
do.
So, I mean, this is my second favorite picture that I've ever taken, right? But this is him at a graveyard on one of our drives, right? I think it's a very
Mhm.
beautiful picture.
It is.
But I'm at a point now where
One sec. So if everybody that's listening on and not watching the video, he's got a picture on his wall of his ex sitting. Or I'll let you explain it. It's your picture. So
well, it's he's crouching down
or crouching. Sorry.
beside some flowers with candles. It's by a grave.
Mhm.
And he's lighting them. And it's the sun's going down
It's a
and the light of the
great looking
lighter
picture.
is
It is a great picture.
Yeah, really
the
good.
light of the lighter is just reflecting off its face. It's just, I don't know, it's gorgeous. Like,
Yeah, it is.
absolutely love it. So, but so I'm, another thing I would do, being grateful every time I had a negative thought, because I did want blood, right? And I wanted to be the executioner. And I would like scheme up ways that I could like hurt him, right?
Mhm.
But like I would do this like compulsively. And then I would stop and watch the thought, and I'm like, where's that thought coming from, right? So
Mhm.
I implemented a practice of saying, I wish you well, right? I wish nothing but the very best for you. I add a little provision in there. So long as your highest good is served as well as the
Mhm.
highest good of other people, right? So I do have a little provision in there because I wouldn't want this to happen to someone else, right?
Yeah, definitely not.
And that really helped. And for I still catch myself saying, "Oh, I wish you well," because I knew very early that I would have thoughts and I would have memories that would just all of a sudden surface. And so, I mean, I could be angry about it, right? And I could lash out at people, or I could neutralize it, right? Say, oh, yeah,
Mhm.
well, all the power to you. Hope you're doing well, right? I'm good. Uh,
As
I'll
long as
move
you
on.
deal with it though, right? And as long
Yeah.
as that you are comfortable and you dealing with it and you are forgiving them,
Yeah.
you're after forgiving them, you're letting that peace.
Oh,
It's almost like the weight on your shoulders is just gone and you release that, you
yeah.
know.
100%. And, for a long time, I wouldn't understand very simple things, right?
Mhm.
Like letting go. What is letting go? It took me forever to understand what that really means, right?
Mhm.
And it's yeah, if you don't let go, right? If you're bitter and angry, I mean, I could do that, but I could be as angry as I wanted, but why would he give a fuck?
Yeah.
Like it's not
Yeah.
affecting him, it's affecting me, right?
Yeah.
It's a cancer that I can get rid of, right?
Yeah.
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 Rather than hold on to.
Yeah.
So
I have
And
a
at the end,
saying.
yeah,
I
go
have a
for it.
saying, and it goes: "A resentment is drinking the poison and expecting somebody else to die."
Yep.
yes,
Definitely.
Same
absolutely.
idea. Same
Yeah.
idea. And
Yeah,
it's very powerful when you can utilize, like, be aware of something like you have, Mark, and utilize it and twist it the way you have, right? Because
Mhm.
that's not something that's just going to work for your ex. That works in any given situation.
Mhm.
Someone
well,
pisses you off, and I'm not talking about hanging the pictures up because you probably have a house full of pictures of people you're not a fan of, but like just being able to that quick little thing like I wish you well, I wish you well,
right.
right? Like that's fucking powerful. I don't care what anybody says. That like
Definitely.
Yeah.
that's
Well,
a learned behavior, and once you learn that, like that's a tool that you can use every day.
and another good one too. I knew this is like 2 weeks after it happened. I used to be a very impatient person, right? Don't like waiting, not going to do a line, like whatever. I recognized, like, these thoughts would come to me, and it's like, you're going to be waiting a lot. So, like, I would do, like, I mean, yeah, I looked maybe a little bit crazy sometimes, right? But if I had to wait, I would literally bust out and just start dancing just so I could move and feel like I was
Mhm.
doing something.
Yeah.
And then it developed into things like waiting in line at the grocery store. I'd let two or three people go ahead of me. I'm like, oh no, go ahead, right? And they're like, okay, what's going on with this guy? Like, why are you in line if you're just letting everyone by, right? But it really, really worked.
Yeah.
And as a result, I'm more patient. And I think, Anthony, it is about that awareness, right? So another thing that I didn't realize was that I had anxiety, right?
hmm
My legs would always be going, right?
Yep.
I'd always have to, or have the feeling that I had to get the hell out of here so I could go here and
Yeah.
have that same feeling. And I remember one day I was going camping early on, like just to be by myself and hang out in nature. I went camping and I was anxious because I didn't leave by the time that I wanted to leave. And I was like, okay, wait, like you're anxious and now you're getting angry. So what is causing this? And I was like, okay, well, it's this self imposed deadline about time. And
Yeah.
now I'm late. And I asked myself, well, how do you get rid of that? Well, you eliminate time. So what I did was this was fun. I drove to the dollar store and I bought a bunch of sidewalk chalk and I threw it down and I, drew some things and then I watched kids draw some things and I got there whenever it is that I wanted to get there, right? So, like, I don't know, awareness. I mean, really, before I think maybe I mean, I'm not fully aware, I don't think, but I'm definitely a lot more aware than I was before. And
Hmm.
You
I
seem very
talk to
aware. No, you
Absolutely.
do seem very aware. Definitely, man. Do you
myself
think that the whole experience definitely humbled you?
1 million
Yeah.
percent.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 million percent.
Okay.
I say that in one of the victim impact statements, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, either I was humiliated or I've been humbled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the grand scheme of things, like I have something to contribute, but I'm not so, egocentric that, I don't want to be the best at anything. I want to do reasonably well, right? But it really diminished my self-importance or my feeling of being self-important, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm an important guy,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 1 million percent.
Crazy. So after, like writing the impact statement, the second one, and the forgiveness thing, then where did your journey take you?
So interesting because after I wrote that, I struggled with going to his sentencing. I just want to say
Mm-hmm.
this and then I'll skip.
No, you're good.
It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like I don't know if I want to go to the sentencing or not. Like just because like I'm the type of guy that will always say something just to do it, but now even though I am talking a lot, like I've scaled back.
Yeah.
But like I went there, uh, and I mean, he wouldn't even look at me, and I mean, I did bust out one of these laughs in court and I got told to settle down because he was spinning a victim story, right? Um, uh, but that was like my way of just fully
Yeah.
releasing.
Yeah.
Um,
Hold on.
uh,
So he said he was spinning a victim story of his own, but
oh,
yet, but
yeah.
then yet he also took the plea, so that like
Well, even at his parole hearing, he was like, I'm the victim here.
yeah,
And that was disconcerting
yeah.
for the officers. But yeah, so, I mean, look at what I'm doing, look at what he's doing.
I was
My
gonna say
guess
like yeah, yeah.
is that he's just incorporated this victim story into his victim story, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because that's what really, that going back to Anthony, it's like the empathy, the draw, let's help and
Yeah.
things like that. But um, going back to work was a little bit rough, right? I was suspended a couple times going back, but that eventually got worked out. But as soon as I settled in, I had to learn how to teach again, right? Because I'm known as a little bit of a hard ass, I think. But it was something that's interesting. I tried just giving out, well, how do I say this? Assignments that would meet the objectives, but the criteria were pretty easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so students hated it. I got terrible reviews that year. They're like, you don't learn anything. And I was like, oh, wow, like I can't really do this. But so I had to learn how to teach again. And just as I was settling in, that's when cancer happened. Everything was returning to normal, but really cancer wasn't all that bad. Like after the stabbing, I was like, well, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I already had some of the lessons worked out, right? So, but
Mm-hmm.
that's gone. But uh, one of
Are
the
you
things,
you're
yeah,
totally clear from it right now, or are you in remission with it, or?
oh yeah, yeah,
Fuck yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. What
Congratulations,
Amazing.
man. I just want to say
I mean, as
congratulations.
far as cancer go, well, I shouldn't say this because I know people have had bad
Yeah.
experiences. It was kidney cancer, mine in particular. They just took my kidney and done. And I
Thank
think I just passed my 5 year now.
Good for you.
So I mean, I should be good.
Good.
But
Yeah.
but what now? It's basically re-engaging with the social, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because also COVID happened in here and that kind of sucked, but also for me it was like not so bad, although sometimes it was. I struggle with whether I should finish my PhD or not, right? My PhD is on drug use the regulation of drug users, essentially. But I get excited, and then I'm not really all that excited about it. So where I think that I could make the most impact is I'm writing a book about this, right? And I mean, I've shelved that too, but I've got to shit or get off the pot with something and actually do something. But I think I would be a happier person writing my book over writing my dissertation, right? Like all my research is done, but I don't have that fire anymore. But I do get really excited talking about this, right? So,
Yeah.
Well,
which is
we
why
did.
when I thought it was a sign. I'm like, okay, this is a kick in the ass for me.
Yeah,
Maybe I
I
should
remember that.
get on that book.
Why
Right?
not, man? Why not? You know,
Yeah.
you just got to find the time, you know, the quiet space or whatever you need to be able to finish that off, man. And you just got to find that, man, and get her done.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Well, it's, and I mean, I'm like 100 pages in right now, and then I just stopped, right? But like,
Yeah.
I could just sit there and write a story, like
Yeah.
you
Are
know.
you just having writer's block right now, or are you just
It's not writer's block; it's a motivation. So I should also
Okay.
say that, like, yeah, okay, I have an addictive personality, and I'm on the hunt for dopamine.
Yeah.
I developed a World of Warcraft habit.
Fuck, here we go, Eric.
For the horde, man. For the horde.
For the horde.
For the horde.
And I quit for 8 months until
I think just after we talked or something like that. We were talking the first time there, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I am on World of Warcraft again. I've tried to tell myself it's manageable, but I mean, the good thing is I can recognize addict talk, right? Immediately after I got stabbed, I went to get some heroin, right? I'm like, oh yeah, well, you know, I'm just gonna do it this once, and I was like, what the fuck are you saying? Listen to yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, no, I'm doing this because I want to do it, and I flipped the script to let me know what I was thinking. Anyway, I went home, did the heroin, and I settled in. This is like after it happened, right? And I was like, oh, this is so fucking awesome. And I could feel my problems just float, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, this is so fucking awesome. That's why you can never do this again, and never did it again. Like,
Well, and that's where it gets dangerous too, right? Is like, you know, you end up just chasing that feeling, you know, and it just it ruins lives, man, at the end of the day, because you just keep on chasing that, as they say, chasing the dragon. I think Anthony can touch a little bit more on this stuff. This is kind of down
well,
his
alley. I feel like Eric had told me there was something you kind of wanted to discuss in terms of addiction in my perspective, so we can definitely go there if you want.
Yeah. Let's do
so yeah, what did you want to talk about? Because Eric said you had some questions.
Yeah. Okay. So I was actually like right before this, I was like, oh, geez, what was it that you were saying about addiction? So you should probably remember. What is your perspective, your stance on addiction? Like, what? The reason why I say this is because
I'm just going to
tell
sit
me
back.
what you think of this. Everybody has to do what works for them. Okay.
Yep.
At the end of the day, yeah, everyone has to do what works for them. I've never been to treatment. Okay. I did go to NA once, and when I was in my 20s, and it was not my thing. Like, I prefer more mindfulness. I don't like the repeated memories. I think that war stories are also dangerous, right? But one of the reasons why I don't is that I see people in 12-step programs beat themselves up because of the rules, right? So for me, right, it is more healthy to say, okay, you fucked up. Don't do that. You also don't have to feel guilt for that.
That's
and
right.
move on. Rather than, because I mean, it works both ways. The beating yourself up can be productive, right?
As long as you learn,
don't beat yourself up too much.
Yeah.
But it can also be counterproductive, right? And that I see so many people be sad about it. And it's like, okay, fuck up. We all fuck up. Like,
Yeah.
we're human, right? Nobody is perfect, right? So do you get a sense of what I'm saying? And
Yeah, I
also
do.
for me, it's like, I will have a cocktail, right?
Yep.
If I want to have a cocktail, I have a cocktail, right? I recognize that the worst thing a cocktail could do for me is make me maybe lower the little inhibitions, and all maybe crystal meth becomes a good idea, or
Mhm.
but I recognize that, and I've been actually really successful with this strategy. So what do you think, like different strategies, like?
Yeah. So for me, like, listen, Mark, like, I'm very open-minded. I don't judge, and I completely respect and understand that 12-step programs aren't for everyone. I also do recognize the issue of like self-deprecating behaviors and like thought patterns and stuff like that. And like when I work with other guys, like that's the cycle that we try to get them to break, right? Is like you beat yourself up, shame, guilt, remorse, and then the only solution out of that is that instant gratification that you get from
Yes.
using a drug or a drink,
Mhm.
and then it becomes this vicious cycle. The only way to feel good is if I do this, because if I don't do this, I feel bad for all the stuff I did before I got in the cycle,
Right.
right? So that's what we try to break in 12-step stuff. And I've heard some people say, like, well, you go in there and you continually identify as an addict or an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But to me, like, addiction isn't specifically related to the drugs or the alcohol, right? Like, it's a behavior. It's like, we qualify it as a disease, but to me, it's a behavior. Like you said, like, addiction doesn't have to do, like, I was a cokehead. That was my thing. But
Right.
it doesn't have to do with the cocaine, right? Like, I use anything in excess to avoid the feelings that I don't want to feel. Right. So I've done it with video games. God of War, that was the one for me. I know if I
Yeah.
turn that fucking game on, I'm gone for 17 hours plus. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like I've used like phones, people, sex, Netflix, fucking TikTok, like that's the behavior, that's the addictive behavior to remove yourself from your reality so that you don't have to acknowledge or deal with your reality.
Yeah.
So I know some people who've come to 12 steps and it's not for them. We've had guys on who've come to similar experiences so recovery isn't a religious program, it's a spiritual one. People always get that mixed up, but
Right.
we've had people on the show who've got to very similar spiritual experiences as I have through 12 steps, but with psilocybin. Like we had a guest on, his name was
Mhm.
Ed,
Yeah.
and like his spiritual awakening, if you will, was almost identical to the one that I had, but I did it through 12 steps and he did it with magic mushrooms. And like that blew my
Yeah.
fucking mind.
Yeah.
So I think addiction is a behavior, a disease, whatever you choose to call it, but there isn't one way to fight it or treat it.
Right.
Like you said, you can have a drink and like maybe you can lower your standards, and crystal meth sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
My problem is I know if I have a drink, there's no fucking doubt in my mind that I'm
Right.
getting an 8-ball. And
Right.
the only reason 12 steps works is because I've learned that about myself. And
Yeah.
I've accepted that reality about myself. And I could be fucking wrong. Like I genuinely
Right.
could be. Like maybe I could have a beer and nothing bad happens. Maybe I could have a line and nothing bad happens. But ultimately, the gifts that I've gotten as a result of working the 12-step program aren't worth me risking that curiosity. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And the
There's
curiosity is so fleeting for me. Like literally all it is for me, Mark, I can tell you exactly what it is. It's a summer day after work. It doesn't even have to be a Friday. And the only thought I get, it doesn't even have to do with cocaine anymore. It's just fuck, a Corona would be good. And then
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
gone. It's gone. Like it doesn't even stay in my head long enough to even consider acting on it. It's just so fleeting. But that's what I got from 12 steps, right? So it's like if I've got to go to a couple meetings and I got to pick up the phone for some buddies, like fuck, that's a small price for me to pay to keep everything that I have, because I burned my fucking life to the ground before that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel you, and I do think it's a really um I mean, people have to do whatever it is that works for them, right?
Mhm.
But you should be open enough to realize that what works for you doesn't necessarily work for the next person. I know when you had one guest, I forget which one, they were talking about a treatment program in Toronto, Homewood, I think it was. Was it Homewood?
There is Homewood in Toronto. Yep.
Okay, so the interesting thing, I would have went to treatment, except I believe it was Homewood, but they said they had two different programs. They had one for addiction, and then they had one for trauma with an addiction component. And I was interested in the trauma because all the shit that happened throughout my whole life came out, and they told me I didn't know what I needed. And then I
But the
shared one
place,
thing.
that place, like
No, this is the Homewood people. Like
they told you that you didn't know what you needed.
Yes, they said I need an addiction with a trauma component that was focused there. And I got angry and I lashed out and I said one thing that happened to me. And the woman started crying and said I was traumatizing her. And I was like, no, fuck it. I can't do this. I can't deal with you people, right? And I mean, I'm an academic and I read about all of these things, like different theories on addiction. And so at the time, I used to think that I know more. I probably know more about drug policy than most people, but I was out of line. But at the end of the day, it kept me out of going to a treatment. I've never, ever, it's just, I'm done. Well, meth was a little harder, but heroin, well.
Once you got there, that was it for you, right?
Well, I also did have it easy with heroin because I was on painkillers, and so it got rid of all the street crap in my system. And I also
morphine was that it?
It was diacetylmorphine, yeah.
Yeah.
After I got out of the hospital, my jaw was also wired shut because my jaw was fractured from the knife. And I was grumpy, right? And I remember looking in the mirror one day, and I wasn't right. I had to eat like meatball soup through a straw. It was fucking gross. And I would try to talk myself into thinking it was tasty. I'm like, it was fucking disgusting.
You did one of these?
And yeah. And I all I could think was like, okay, if I cut these wires out of my mouth, right? You're gonna like just fully taper and you're just gonna quit the opiates. I cut the wires out of my mouth with pliers and there was lots of blood. And I had a delicious cheeseburger after, but that's besides the point.
Wait, how did the doctors, what did they say? Like when you I cut it.
Well, it's interesting because I didn't tell the doctors on purpose because they wanted me to go to this other place to get the wires out. But I didn't want to tell them that I took them out myself because I wanted to see how it healed. And it healed pretty well. Like she's like, "Oh, this looks excellent." And I was like, "Great, I took the wires out myself."
Did it myself.
And she's like, "You what?" Right? It's also kind of interesting. So when you said that, Eric, the right side of my face is numb, except I only notice it when I talk about it, right?
Okay.
Like
nerve damage.
Yeah, like full nerve damage. And that's something else. I mean, I could be woe is me, but it's like I kind of forget about it.
I have nerve damage on my kneecap because when I was a kid, I had a trampoline and I did a knee drop, and there's this pointy rock underneath the trampoline.
Oh, fuck.
And I fucking did a knee drop right, and like as it came down, and it just fucking hit it and came up. Yeah, that really fucking sucked. I'll tell you that. Yeah. So I can't feel anything like on the ball of my knee.
Yeah,
and I forget about it. Like I just remembered about it because you brought it up. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, how often do I play with my knees? Not really, right? So you know what I mean. So
like it's. I mean, there's. When I think about nerve damage or ripping shit out of my, the moral of that story was, I started smiling again and I had a really good cheeseburger. But when people are in that victim mentality, right, it sucks and it gets almost comforting. But like I got to the point where I didn't want people to understand me, right? Because like I don't know, there's something about that state that it's uncomfortable but comforting at the same time. And it's moving from there, right? Past it, where I recognize that on some level I'm always going to be the guy that was stabbed in the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
But only when we talk about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
that's true.
other than that, I mean, it goes back to how we met her. You don't know what somebody's story is, right?
Yeah, it's true, man.
And everyone's hanging out, and I'm glad that I blocked your girlfriend's view. Or else we would have never ended up talking, right? And I
Yeah,
mean, even talking there, it was fun, right?
yeah,
Like we
yeah,
hit it off, and
yeah.
yeah, it was
General. I mean, a genuine conversation.
yeah,
It was good, man, and I'm happy that, I'm happy you blocked her, because then you wouldn't be on this podcast right
Yeah.
now. You know what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean? So
yeah.
I'm
that's
happy
Yeah.
too, but I'm pissed that you guys got to see Dead Mouse and James Hype, for fuck's sakes.
you didn't miss
Well,
anything about Dead Mouse, man.
No, it
I,
Me
wasn't
I
good.
personally, I didn't.
I've seen Dead Mouse a couple times, and honestly, when I saw James Hype, I was like, okay. And I know a lot of people don't like James Hype, but uh, he's easy on the eyes, and yeah, he's pretty good. Like he's got
Yeah,
some
it
high
was good.
energy.
A good set. Definitely.
Yeah, so I mean that's why I was there. But I mean, yeah. I
So
mean,
are you just like straight house music, Mark, or are you like dubstep and like all of the shit?
I do like dubstep. When I was a raver, my favorite music was breakbeats.
Oh yeah.
There
Oh,
was a
okay, yeah,
breakbeat drum and bass sort of like
yeah. Oh, sick.
diversion, like you picked one side or the other. I landed
Yeah.
on breaks. I actually,
How about
World of
Garage?
Warcraft, I will say that it was problematic, but when I quit, I bought like a starter DJ sort of setup, entry level that I really, what comes next? I mean, I'd like to get into music
Yeah,
Fuck
man.
yeah.
more, right? Although I'll be this DJ that's a senior.
Whatever, man.
Yeah,
Fucking do
man.
it, man. There's tons actually seniors. I seen actually. I was. What was it? I was going through TikTok the other day, and there was this grandma, and she was fucking giving her, and there's like lights going on. She was fucking spinning her
Yeah,
turntables, man.
Putting some
Doesn't
bangers out.
Hell yeah, bro. It doesn't
yeah,
matter how old you are, man. As long as like whatever you want to do, fuck everybody else
yeah,
and do what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, I haven't said this in a fucking long time. No one is coming to your birthday unless you invite them. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
who gives a fuck about these people? Because they're not
yes.
coming to your birthday. Fuck what they say about you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's the
Absolutely.
truth, man.
Yeah,
Fuck them all and do what makes you happy.
yeah, for sure.
Well,
Fuck,
what do you?
you were raving when I was in diapers, man. Yeah.
The
I
90s,
probably was too, man. I was fucking my first rave. I was 14 years old. I went to my first
Oh,
rave,
fuck.
brother.
I didn't go till I was 19.
Yeah.
yeah, it went early. Like I think it would have been 92, 91
Yeah.
would have been my first. Like I witnessed the transition from grunge to house. Like I had an
Mm-hmm.
existential crisis. I didn't think I could like guitars and beats at the same time. Beats won out, and I'm glad that they did. But it, I mean, it was a good time. Like I have no complaints. And the same with the rave scene. There was lots of shitty
Mm-hmm.
shit that happened there,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
don't regret like 1 second. Right? It's
It was
about
good
this
times back in
moment.
the day. It's nothing like how it is. Like I remember, I'm a raver by heart. I will still be going to raves since like I'll be 90, man. Well, if I make it to 90, I'll be there with
Yeah,
my fucking canes and pushing that shit up on my walker. You know what I mean? I just love the atmosphere. I love the music. It's just I love it, man. You know what I mean? But it's
Definitely.
yeah,
not like how it was. It's like nowadays. I think they start at like what was it 9 o'clock till 2 or something like that, or 7 till 2.
yeah,
Man, back in the day, you would go from like 7 till 7 in the morning, man, or 6 in the
yeah,
morning. That's when it was fun.
yeah.
But mind
My
you,
crew of
you're high.
friends.
Everybody's high as fuck.
Oh
But
yeah,
like, you know what I
my
mean?
crew of
But
friends would roll in at 3 or 4 a.m. Like
yeah,
we'd be off doing our whatever the things that we were doing, and I mean, it was such a good time.
yeah, man. You
Yeah,
used to go to the club and then you could go to the rave after.
yeah,
That's how we used to do it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But now I barely leave my bedroom, man. I like my peace. I like my home. Like I like going out. Don't get me wrong. I'll go out maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 times a year, if that, to a rave, you know. But I mean, I like the peace, man. I like my house. I like staying inside and just, I don't know. I'm an introvert now. I've been an extrovert all my whole fucking life. Now I'm an introvert. I like to just chill out, and it's peaceful, man.
Well, and that's too. I think after I was stabbed, I like had to excise and cut off all
Mm-hmm.
friend groups and like reintegrate.
Mm-hmm.
And it taught me how to be alone and like
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, mind you, I put her away. I have my dog. She's my BFF, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's better than people in a lot of ways, right?
Definitely.
But yeah, she's my little girl, and I mean, I have her.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
I'm the same. I got my kids, dude. I got a couple buddies that I'll go for wings with, but aside from that, man, like that, I just need my kids. My kids
Yeah.
and my
And
kids
me.
and some juicy chicken wings.
And me. And me,
yeah,
man.
I fucking talk to you every day, bro.
I know.
That's a
What do we
given,
do?
dude.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, what do you think about the question?
The question,
The
yeah.
question.
So I have one more question for you, Mark.
Yep.
What is your message to the world in one sentence?
My message to the world in one. This is a tough one. I mean, I have a whole bunch of stuff. Keep on keeping on. You know what? Make it appreciative inquiry style, right? So I told you appreciative inquiry in a lot of ways sold my life, but sometimes things are shitty, right? Sometimes we're not really prepared to talk about them. So it's, well, what are you grateful for? What went well? That's it. Ask yourself what went well, and keep riding that wave, right?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep riding
Perfect,
that wave.
man.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Beautiful.
Awesome, man. Well, Mark, that's our time, man. I just want to say I appreciate you, man. I really do. I'm so glad that we fucking met at the rave, man. It's just a cool story to bring you onto this podcast, you know. And we really appreciate the email right away the next day, man. You had to pull over to. You said again, you sent us. You know, it was awesome, man. And you know, I'm really happy. You know, the stars aligned, I guess you could say there, right?
Yeah,
And, you know,
absolutely. And next time I'm down on the coast, I'll
please, man,
text or whatever. We should hang out.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
And just to answer your one question that you had in the email, Mark, I'm the one who has just keep going on my hands.
Yeah. It's Anthony.
I saw you when I did the tattoo thing. You were like,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, buddy, I've got my throat done. I have the whole back of my head done. Yeah, I've got a few.
Yeah. No, it's, I used to also mock positivity, right? But it works, right? As long as it's not fake positive. But very simple message, very powerful. Just keep going, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, that was a good episode.
Very good episode.
And I took cold medicine before we did this, and I have been fighting for my fucking life for like the last 20 minutes. It's not that I'm bored. This is an amazing episode, but holy shit, is that cold medicine kicking in? So thank you again for coming on, Mark. I'm sure we will have you on. We will stay connected via email. I'm assuming Eric has your number as well.
Yeah.
But it was a pleasure, man. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being so vulnerable and telling your story the way you did. Like, I know sometimes it's difficult for people to come on and talk about some of the stuff that you came on and talked about. So thank you for sharing it in such intimate detail. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, we do, man.
Great. Thanks, guys.
All right, Mark. Thank you again, and that's it. Thank you.
We will be live on.